How can a shark declared extinct millions of years ago still appear in the stories of modern fishermen? That question shook the Australian coast when whispers spread of a massive beast rising from the depths. In 2023, seasoned lobster fishermen, men who had weathered countless storms and spent their lives on the sea, suddenly refused to return to the waters they knew like family. These weren't inexperienced sailors or casual observers. They were hardened professionals who lived and breathed the ocean, yet something had driven them to fear it. They spoke of a ghostly white shark, so large, so unnatural in size and color, that it dwarfed every known creature. To them, it wasn't just another shark. It was a nightmare from another age. The description echoed an older tale, the chilling Port Stephens incident of 1918, where fishermen reported a shark measuring between 115 to 300 feet. Could such a creature still exist, hidden in the unexplored trenches of the ocean? Or was this only the mind's way of turning shadows and waves into monsters? One thing is certain even in today's world, where science claims the Megalodon is long gone, the ocean continues to spark doubt and fear, reminding us that its mysteries are far from solved. Fear on the Australian coast. Off the Australian coast, the sea has always been both a friend and an enemy to those who make their living from it. But in recent years, something far more unsettling than storms or waves has gripped the fishing towns. Stories began spreading of a shark unlike any ever recorded, not just large, but impossibly large, ghostly in color, and terrifying in presence. These tales came from men who had nothing to gain from lies. For generations, their families had pulled lobsters and crayfish from these waters. The ocean fed them, clothed them, and built their communities. Yet suddenly, these same men, hardened by years of storms, shipwrecks, and close encounters with real predators, refused to go back to sea. They spoke in low voices, describing a massive shadow that moved with frightening grace beneath their boats, its pale body glowing like bone in the dark water. Some called it a white leviathan, others whispered the forbidden word Megalodon. Whether it was a prehistoric survivor or an oversized mutation of a great white, the effect was the same. Fear ran through every dock and harbor. For fishermen to abandon their livelihood was unthinkable, and yet they chose safety over survival. Something out there had reminded them that humans, no matter how strong or experienced, are small before the mysteries of the deep. The Port Stephens shock of 1918. In 1918, long before modern sonar and underwater cameras, the fishermen of Port Stephens, Australia, faced an encounter so terrifying it was etched into history. These were professional crayfish men, tough and weathered, who knew every reef and current of their fishing grounds. Yet for several days, they refused to set sail. The reason was a creature they all described the same way: a shark of impossible size, ghostly white in color, stretching anywhere from 115 to 300 feet in length. To put that into perspective, the largest great white sharks barely reach 20 feet, and even the mighty whale shark grows only to about 40. What they saw dwarfed all of that. The men spoke of a predator that moved with terrifying calm, its bulk gliding silently through the waters as though the sea itself bent around it. Their fear was so deep that respected naturalist David Stead, who personally interviewed them, believed their accounts. These weren't men prone to tall tales. Their livelihoods depended on truth. And yet they all agreed something monstrous had risen from the depths. That encounter left Port Stephens forever haunted, a reminder that sometimes the ocean reveals shadows from a forgotten past. Fishermen refused the sea. For the men of Port Stephens, the sea was more than a place of work. It was their lifeline, their identity, and their family's survival. Day after day, they faced storms, sharp rocks, and the constant threat of drowning, yet they never hesitated to return. But after that encounter in 1918, everything changed. The crayfish fishermen, hardened by years on the water, were struck with a fear so deep they abandoned their boats. For days they refused to sail, leaving their lobster pots untouched on the ocean floor. To outsiders, this decision was shocking. To walk away from their trade was to invite ruin, for these men lived only by what they could catch. But the horror they described was stronger than hunger, stronger than poverty. They spoke of a pale monster, a shark that made the mighty great whites they knew so well look like minnows in comparison. It wasn't just its size that terrified them. It was the feeling that the creature was aware of them, circling with an intelligence and weight of presence that left them paralyzed. The fishermen admitted openly that they would rather lose everything than meet the monster again. That chilling choice revealed the truth. Something in the depths had stripped these seasoned men of their courage, proving that even the toughest seafarers can be broken by what lurks unseen below. Naturalist David Stead investigates. When news of the fishermen's fear spread through Port Stephens, it reached the ears of David Stead, a respected Australian naturalist. Stead was no stranger to ocean life. He had studied countless marine creatures and listened to fishermen's tales across the coast. But what he heard in 1918 was unlike anything before. These were not fanciful campfire stories. The men spoke with trembling voices, their faces marked by genuine dread. They insisted on the same description: a massive shark, ghostly white, longer than any whale they had ever seen. Stead noted that these were experienced outside crayfish men, men who rarely exaggerated and who understood the difference between myth and reality. What struck him most was their reaction. They weren't trying to gain fame or stir excitement. They were terrified to return to sea, even at the risk of losing their livelihoods. For a naturalist trained to separate fact from fantasy, their sincerity was undeniable. Stead believed that something extraordinary had happened off the coast of Port Stephens, something that shook even the most seasoned seafarers. Though he couldn't prove the creature's existence, he chose to document their accounts, preserving one of the most mysterious shark encounters ever recorded. His decision ensured the legend would never be forgotten. Ghostly white leviathan, the fishermen's most haunting detail was the color. They all described the shark as ghostly white, a pale leviathan rising from the deep like a specter. This strange appearance set it apart from any known species. Great white sharks are gray on top and white beneath, a natural camouflage called countershading. But an entirely white shark, that was something else. The men swore it wasn't the sun playing tricks on the water. Its pale, bone-like skin shimmered under the waves, making the enormous creature look even more unnatural. Witnesses also insisted its body was not thin or sickly, but built with immense bulk and power, like a predator carved out of history itself. Some experts later speculated about leucism or albinism, rare genetic conditions that drain an animal's natural pigmentation. Others suggested that extreme old age could have caused the coloration, but to the men who saw it, scientific theories didn't matter. They felt as though they were staring at a phantom from another time. The size alone would have been enough to terrify them, but paired with the ghostly whiteness, it became an image burned into memory. A shark like no other, not just a predator, but a pale shadow of the ancient world, alive in their waters. Size beyond known sharks, the true terror of the Port Stephens encounter lay not only in the shark's ghostly color, but in its size. The fishermen estimated it between 115 to 300 feet long. To understand the scale of that claim, consider this: the largest great white sharks barely reach 20 feet, and even the whale shark, the largest fish alive today, grows only to about 40 feet. What these men described was many times larger, a creature that could have dwarfed their boats and swallowed them whole with ease. Its sheer mass suggested power beyond imagination, a predator built for dominance in a world that no longer exists. The fishermen were not known for exaggeration. Their survival depended on accurate knowledge of the sea, and their accounts matched in detail. They spoke of a body thick with muscle, a tail that moved the waters with frightening force, and jaws large enough to crush anything in its path. Compared to modern sharks, this was a leviathan from another age, scaled up to impossible proportions. Whether it was a surviving megalodon or something unknown, one fact was clear: it was too big to be dismissed as ordinary. This was a shark that redefined the limits of fear. Strange color and behavior. What unsettled the fishermen most was not only the creature's size, but how it behaved. Sharks are predators, but they usually act in familiar ways. Circling, striking, then moving on. This ghostly giant seemed different. Witnesses said it lingered near their boats, studying their gear, moving with a slow, deliberate intelligence. It didn't thrash wildly or attack recklessly. Instead, it glided around the fishing lines and traps as though curious about human activity. Great white sharks are known for brief bursts of interest before swimming off, but this creature stayed, circling with unnerving patience. Its pale skin made it visible even in deeper waters, a ghostly presence that refused to leave. The fishermen swore it was not acting like a hungry shark, but like something aware of them, examining their world. That unnatural curiosity left them shaken. Was this the behavior of an ancient predator that had learned to adapt, or was it simply the men projecting their fear onto a massive, unknown animal? Either way, its movements were enough to convince hardened seafarers that they were not in control. For once, they were the ones being watched and studied by something beyond their understanding. Could it be a megalodon? The question haunted both fishermen and scientists. Could the ghostly white shark of Port Stevens have been a living megalodon? This prehistoric giant, believed to have gone extinct around 2.6 million years ago, was the largest shark ever to exist. Fossil evidence shows megalodons grew up to 50 or even 80 feet long, with jaws powerful enough to crush a whale. Their teeth alone measured over 7 inches, weapons built for dominance in ancient oceans. But the fishermen's descriptions went even further. A creature perhaps 3 times larger than science accepts for megalodon. Could an isolated population have survived in the unexplored depths of Australia's coastal waters? The ocean covers over 70% of Earth, yet less than 5% has been truly explored. Entire ecosystems remain hidden in deep trenches where colossal predators could theoretically endure undisturbed. Skeptics argue the food supply required for such giants would make survival impossible, but history offers surprises. The coelacanth, once thought extinct for 66 million years, was rediscovered alive in 1938. Could the same be true for the megalodon? The Port Stevens Leviathan left no proof but fear. Still, its image keeps alive the possibility that Earth's greatest predator may not be gone after all. The prehistoric giant explained. To understand the terror behind the Port Stevens encounter, we must look at the prehistoric giant itself, the megalodon. Its scientific name, Otodus megalodon, literally means giant tooth, and for good reason. Fossils reveal teeth the size of a human hand, serrated blades built to tear through whale flesh with ease. Paleontologists estimate megalodons reached lengths of 50 to 80 feet, with some theories suggesting even larger. Their jaws could open wide enough to swallow 2 adults side by side. They were apex predators of the ancient seas, ruling for millions of years before disappearing from the fossil record. Evidence of their presence has been found across the globe, from Europe and Africa to the Americas and Australia. These massive sharks thrived in warm waters, hunting marine mammals and dominating entire ecosystems. If even one population had survived in hidden ocean trenches, it would explain the legends that persist today. To imagine such a predator alive in modern times is chilling. A reminder that nature once produced a killer far greater than the great white shark we fear today. For the fishermen of 1918, their descriptions carried echoes of this prehistoric monster, leaving many to wonder, had the megalodon truly returned? Australia's megalodon past. Australia has long been tied to the story of the megalodon. Fossil evidence shows that millions of years ago, these massive predators roamed Australian waters freely. The continental shelf, with its vast hunting grounds and abundance of whales, made it an ideal home for giants of the deep. Megalodon teeth discovered in places like Victoria and Queensland prove their presence, with some specimens reaching over 7 inches long. larger than any other shark teeth ever found. These fossils suggest that Australian waters once hosted some of the biggest megalodons on Earth. The geography of the region supports the possibility as well. Deep drop-offs near the coast, unexplored trenches, and isolated environments could have sheltered species far longer than in other parts of the world. In fact, Australia remains a hotspot for mysterious marine encounters to this day, from enormous great whites to strange, unidentified sea creatures. The fishermen of Port Stephens may not have known the science, but their stories echoed a past written in stone, one where giant sharks ruled these waters. Could their terrifying sighting have been a surviving remnant of that age? The fossils prove the giants were here. The question is, did they ever truly leave? Modern sightings still haunt. The mystery of Port Stephens did not end in 1918. Even in modern times, Australia continues to produce stories of massive sharks that defy belief. In 2024, near the very same waters, an angler reported seeing a shark so large he first thought it was a submarine. Only when it glided closer did he realize it was a great white of enormous size, far beyond anything he had prepared for. Similar encounters have surfaced off Port Lincoln, where huge sharks have been filmed circling fishing boats and tuna farms, their sheer bulk leaving even experienced fishermen stunned. Social media has only amplified these events. Videos of basking sharks, whale sharks, or oversized great whites often go viral, with many viewers quick to label them Megalodon sightings. While some are cases of mistaken identity, others raise real questions. Deep-sea cameras and sonar scans continue to reveal massive signatures in Australian waters that scientists struggle to explain. These modern encounters keep alive the fear that something larger than known science still patrols the deep. For those who remember the old Port Stephens tale, each new sighting is not just another shark story. It is a reminder that the legend of the Leviathan has never truly gone away. Skeptics offer other reasons. Not everyone believes the Port Stephens Leviathan was a living megalodon. Skeptics point to more ordinary explanations. They argue the fishermen may have misjudged size because of water distortion, fear, and poor visibility during a storm that had recently swept the coast. Large shadows, debris, or even multiple great whites swimming together could have created the illusion of a monster. Some suggest the fishermen invented the tale to cover for lost equipment destroyed in the storm, choosing a dramatic story over financial ruin. Scientists also question the lack of physical evidence. Sharks shed thousands of teeth in their lifetime, and megalodon teeth are virtually indestructible. If such giants survived into modern times, new teeth should be found regularly, yet none have surfaced. Another problem is food. Megalodons would need several tons of prey every day. Such feeding would leave obvious scars on whale populations and ecosystems, but no such evidence exists. Critics argue that fear and folklore often magnify real animals into legends. Still, even the most skeptical voices admit one thing: the consistency of the fishermen's accounts and their decision to risk ruin rather than return to sea make the Port Stephens incident hard to dismiss entirely. The mystery that won't die more than a century has passed since the Port Stephens incident, yet the story refuses to fade. Each generation of fishermen, divers, and coastal residents keeps the tale alive, whispering of a pale leviathan that once rose from the deep. Unlike many sea stories, this one carries weight because of the men involved, hardened professionals whose fear was real and documented. Naturalist David Stead's decision to record their testimony gave it permanence, ensuring the legend could not simply vanish into rumor. Science has provided many reasons to doubt megalodon survival, but no explanation has ever fully erased the fishermen's accounts. Instead, every new giant shark sighting, every sonar anomaly, and every strange shadow in the depths breathes life back into the mystery. The ocean is vast, covering more than 70% of our planet, and most of it remains unexplored. In such an environment, the line between legend and reality blurs. Was it truly a surviving megalodon, an oversized great white, or something unknown? no one can say with certainty. What endures is the chilling reminder that the sea still holds secrets, and some of them may be larger, older, and more terrifying than we dare to believe. Similar tales around the world. The Port Stevens Leviathan is not the only story of giant sharks haunting the seas. Across the world, fishermen, sailors, and coastal communities have reported encounters with creatures far larger than science recognizes. In Japan, fishermen have spoken of unusually large sharks tangled in their nets, unlike anything they had seen before. In the Pacific Islands, ancient legends tell of sea monsters that sound strikingly similar to descriptions of megalodons, predators so massive they could flip canoes and swallow them whole. Even in modern times, unusual reports surface. The Monterey Canyon off California and the Puerto Rico Trench in the Atlantic are both deep water environments where massive, unidentified creatures are said to appear. Many of these sightings share common traits: enormous size, unusual coloration, and behavior that suggests intelligence beyond normal sharks. Are these simply cases of mistaken identity, or do they point to a hidden truth beneath the waves? The fact that cultures separated by oceans and centuries share such similar accounts suggests a mystery larger than coincidence. Whether rooted in memory of prehistoric encounters or based on real, living giants, these worldwide tales show that humanity's fear of unseen predators is as vast as the oceans themselves. Science stands against survival despite the gripping stories and chilling accounts. Modern science firmly maintains that the megalodon is gone. According to paleontologists, the giant shark disappeared around 2.6 million years ago, most likely due to climate changes that reduced its food supply. Megalodons fed primarily on whales, and when whale populations shifted or declined, the massive predator could no longer survive. Marine biologists argue that if megalodons were still alive today, we would see obvious evidence. Such giants would need to eat several tons of prey daily, leaving behind carcasses, bite marks, and major disruptions in the food chain. Yet no such patterns appear in today's oceans. Another powerful argument comes from teeth. Sharks constantly shed them, and megalodon teeth are nearly indestructible. If living populations existed, fresh specimens should still be washing up on beaches, but only ancient fossils are ever found. Modern tools such as environmental DNA testing, which detects genetic traces of sea life from water samples, have never shown evidence of megalodons either. To science, the case is closed. The prehistoric giant is extinct. And yet, unexplored waters and mysterious sightings keep the debate alive, leaving a small door open for those who believe legends sometimes outlast facts. The psychology of sea monsters. Why do stories of giant sharks and sea monsters refuse to die, even when science says they are impossible? The answer may lie as much in the human mind as in the ocean itself. The sea has always been mysterious, vast, and dangerous, an alien world on our own planet. For fishermen who spend their lives at its mercy, strange encounters feel deeply personal. Fear sharpens memory, and when something unknown appears, the mind often enlarges it, turning shadows into monsters. Across cultures, sharks already hold a special place in human imagination. They are symbols of power, fear, and death, predators we both respect and dread. The idea of an even larger shark, a megalodon, strikes at a primal fear. The thought that something stronger than us still lurks in the dark. At the same time, such legends satisfy our craving for mystery in a world that seems fully mapped and explained. The possibility of hidden giants reminds us that we do not control nature as much as we think. Stories of leviathans are not just about the creatures themselves, but about our relationship with the sea. Fear, wonder, and the uneasy truth that we may never know all its secrets. Australia's Shark Triangle. Australia's waters are home to some of the world's most mysterious shark encounters, earning it a reputation for an Australian Shark Triangle. This stretch of ocean runs along the eastern and southern coasts, where the continental shelf drops suddenly into deep abyssal waters. These environments create perfect hiding places for massive predators. From Port Stevens in the north to the Great Australian Bight in the south, Fishermen and divers have reported extraordinary sightings that challenge scientific explanation. In South Australia, huge sharks have been spotted circling tuna farms, their size so great they made normal great whites look small. One account even described underwater cameras malfunctioning when a massive shark swam near, as if its sheer presence interfered with the equipment. Off Western Australia's Ningaloo Reef, dive operators have occasionally reported sharks that don't match any known species, their unusual colors and behavior adding to the mystery. In these deep, isolated waters, something could thrive unseen for generations. Whether they are oversized great whites, hybrids, or something older, these sightings keep alive the belief that Australia's seas may still shelter secrets from another age. The Shark Triangle remains a place where science meets legend and where fear still lingers. Fossils and ancient legends. Australia's past offers more than stories. It offers fossils. Massive Megalodon teeth, some over 7 inches long, have been found in Victoria's Otway Basin and other regions, proving that these giants once ruled Australian seas. Such fossils suggest that megalodons in this part of the world may have grown even larger than their counterparts elsewhere. But beyond bones and teeth, ancient voices also tell of leviathans. Indigenous Australian cultures have oral traditions stretching back tens of thousands of years, and many of these include tales of enormous sea predators. The Yolngu people speak of Biru, a giant crocodile-like creature that ruled the ancient waters. Other stories describe predators, white like bone, and longer than many canoes. Images hauntingly close to the Port Stephens accounts of 1918. These legends may be more than myth. They could be cultural memories of encounters with massive sharks from a time when humans and megalodons may have shared the same seas. Even in the 20th century, pearl divers in remote Kimberley waters told of sharks larger than anything science recognizes. Fossils in stone, legends in song, to some of the largest great white sharks ever recorded, and these living giants blur the line between fact and legend. In the waters near South Australia's Neptune Islands, great whites regularly grow over 20 feet long, pushing the upper limits of known shark size. One of the most famous. Whatever the truth, the story of Port Stephens reminds us that the sea is not ours to master. It humbles us, terrifies us, and whispers that some secrets will never be revealed. The ghostly white shark remains both legend and warning. Proof that even in the modern world, the ocean guards creatures and truths far beyond imagination. The mystery of the deep is not solved. It still waits, patient and unseen, beneath the waves.